This rough country 2.5-inch lift kit without shocks is for those of you that have a 2007 to 2018 JK that are looking for a way to run a set of 33-inch tires. That's generally what I recommend with 2.5 inches of lift. You can go up to a 35-inch tire, but you're going to lose a little bit of that additional space and not have quite as much room for articulation, especially if you're going off-road. And if you want to go with something smaller than a 31-inch tire, you can probably just go with a leveling kit and not go with a lift kit like you see here. This lift kit, even though it is not springs, it is just spacers, is still going to require most of the same steps for installation as you would need to go through if you were installing a full spring lift kit. So I am going to give this a 2 out of 3 wrenches and probably around 3 hours or so. The install time will vary depending on what tools you have at your disposal and if you have a lift or not, and we'll talk more about the installation in just a second. So as I said, this is going to be a coil spring spacer lift kit. You can obviously see that this does not include new, longer coil springs. And that is a perfectly fine way to lift your Jeep. You're still going to get the lift that you need to run those 33-inch tires. Now, the only downside, if you want to call it that, of a kit like this is you can get into a situation where you have coil bind sooner than you would if you installed a longer set of coil springs. And coil bind is just a situation where the coils of the spring can touch, and over time that can cause some damage to the spring. Being that you have the spacers in there, again, you're going to have that a little bit sooner than if you installed a spring. But that's not to say that you can't go off-road, you can't drive on-road with this kit installed. Plenty of people do it and it still works very, very well. So as you can see, this kit is made up of a fairly small number of parts. Of course, I don't have the hardware here on the table, but this is really everything that you need to run a 2.5-inch lift and 33s inexpensively. So you're going to have your 4 coil spring spacers. The fronts are going to be a little bit taller than the back, and that's going to help to level out your ride height a little bit as well. This kit does not come with shocks, but it does come with shock extension brackets, so you're able to use a factory set of shocks with this kit, and that's it. You don't have any track bar brackets, longer sway bar end links. You don't have a lot of those other components that are more traditionally included in a lift kit. Like I said, you don't need them. Once you install this kit, you start driving on-road and off-road, you'll get a feel for what you want to go ahead and upgrade on this kit. So this is going to be a great starter kit, a nice inexpensive kit and way to run 33s that you can build on down the line. This lift kit is going to be one of the least expensive ways to lift your Jeep 2.5 inches and run a set of 33-inch tires. This kit comes in at right around $160, and that is very, very inexpensive. And this is going to be a great starter kit, as I mentioned before. I think it's well worth the price to get you into a lift kit and then go ahead and have something that you can build on as you use your Jeep and find the areas that you want to upgrade. Now I'll have a member of the install team show you how to install this lift kit on your JK.
Position your vehicle on a lift and raise it up into the air. We'll be starting in the rear of the vehicle, and first we want to remove both rear wheels. Start off by supporting your rear axle with a set of pole jacks or jack stands if you're not working on a lift. Remove the upper shock bolts by using a 16mm socket. Also remove the lower shock bolts using an 18mm socket and a 15mm wrench. Using an 18mm socket, remove the bottom sway bar bolts and retain them for later use. Using a 10mm wrench or socket, remove the bolt holding the brake line to the frame. We're going to be attaching the brake line extension bracket to the factory hole in the frame and reattaching it to the brake line. Lower the axle enough so you can remove the stock coil springs. We will be installing the new coil spring spacer with the supplied hardware. Install the new coil spring spacer with the supplied washer nut and secure it with the 1/2 inch by 2.5 inch bolt. After you have installed your shock spacers, you can reinstall your factory springs using the factory spring isolators as well. Next, we can reinstall the lower sway bar mount. We'll start off the front by removing the wheels. Next, raise the vehicle up and support the axle with jack stands or pole jacks. We will next remove the lower shock bolts and the lower sway bar bolts. Next, we'll remove the factory brake line bracket and install the brake line extension bracket. Next, we're going to lower the axle down to remove the factory springs. Next, we're going to remove the factory spring isolator and install our spacer. And install the isolator back in place. Next, install your springs, and from there we'll move on to installing the lower shock relocation bracket. Using the provided hardware, mount your lower shock relocation bracket. Next, we're going to raise the front axle back up to reconnect our lower shock bolts. After installing your lower shock relocation brackets, you can reconnect your lower sway bar bolts.
So if you're looking for a very inexpensive 2.5-inch starter lift kit, I definitely recommend this option from Rough Country, and you can find it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.